Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Oh my gosh, hi friends and welcome to another recommendation video. And today I have a video that is half a viewer request and half not. I don't know how else to word that, but let me explain myself. So as you can tell based on the description of it, this is going to be a hidden identity rec video. But also this was based off of a specific request where someone wanted me to do recs that were someone falling in love with two people that are actually the same person. And by that, they mean in a hidden identity scenario, right? So the oddly specific situation they mean is where, woman is falling for a guy, but also there's an online persona of someone they're falling for, and it happens to be the same person that they're falling for in real life as well. That's just one example, right? So it's that like one of the identities is a hidden identity, and maybe the one person knows they're falling for both the same person and maybe they don't. It just depends on how the story is set up, but usually this involves some kind of, either purposeful or not purposeful catfishing situation. Anyway, it sounds more complicated than it is. When I explain a couple of these books to you, you're going to be like, oh, wow, I get it. But when they asked for this book recommendation, oddly specifically, I was confused about which recs they were talking about. So it took me a while to think on it. Then once I understood what they were talking about, I put that idea aside and I was like, okay, that sounds like something I could do. However, it is actually really difficult to find, and I understand why it's an oddly specific thing. And so that's why this video is a mix of, I think I ended up with 4 recommendations that were actually that oddly specific thing they were asking for. And then the rest are just hidden identity recs. So that's the compromise I made for this, is that I just couldn't find enough that I had read. And, that's how I like to do these, is they're ones that I've read them, where it's, either the guy or the girl, or even if it's in a queer relationship too, where it's one person falling in love with two people that are one person. And either one or both of them knows that. I just couldn't find that many that I had read. Now, there are some other rec videos out there that I do believe have more of these recs, but I hadn't read them. So I just can't recommend them. So anyway, how I'm going to do this is the first 4 books that I'm going to recommend are that. They are the ones that are well, in this case it did end up being a woman who is falling for 2 men that are the same guy. So I have 4 recs for that oddly specific request, and this was an anonymous person who requested this. I don't have the name of the person who asked for it. And then the other 6 are just regular hidden identity ones where the person is keeping their identity a secret, but it's not that they're trying to make the person love both them and their hidden identity. So that's the difference. They're using a hidden identity for fame reasons, for nefarious reasons, for whatever reasons. So that is why I ended up, however I ended up labeling this. Maybe I played it up into the, that it's one person loving the same person twice. I don't know how I'm going to name this. I don't know. But the point is, I know I'm spending 5 minutes explaining this. But I wanted to be able to give this person, whoever you are, who requested this, I wanted to give you some recs because I do like this scenario as well, because it's more specific than just a hidden identity. It's where they're actively kind of catfishing the person, but either for a good reason, or in some of these, it's a dark romance reason, or even for a fame reason, as you'll see for a few of them. I actually only have one of them that is for a dark and twisted reason. The rest are for kind of like their one persona is like famous, and so they meet them as a regular person, and then they also meet them as a famous person, and they start falling in love in both places, right? And then the other wrecks, it's the same thing. Some of them, they're purposely deceiving them. Some of them, they just don't know who the person is, so that's why it's hidden identity. And a couple of them, it's for a dark purpose. So anyway, now that I've given you all the setup, you know I'm notorious for my long setups, but I want to explain how I'm bifurcating this video, and that it isn't going to be solely one, but they are all hidden identity. They're just, one of them is a bit more of a complicated kind of hidden identity. So, after all of that, let's get this kicked off. And I'm kicking it off with, as often happens when I make a rec video like this, what finally pushed me over the edge into wanting to make this video is because I read a book for actually annotating purposes that had this scenario exactly. Now, I have to be a bit like, here's the thing, before I even put the book up there, I also have to put out that it's kind of a big spoiler. Because a lot of these books, you know, it's in the blurb that it's going to be a double identity. That's also something this one's called. But this one that I loved a lot, like I just read this one, I really liked it. The fact that it's a double identity is a spoiler. And the person who had me annotate this for them, I had no idea this had a double identity. I just knew that it was like a dark romance with like, it's set up that it has like primal play and that it's really kinky. And actually this was kind of a like, I don't want to say it was like a psychological thriller, because it wasn't quite a thriller. It was still like a dark romance, but there definitely was more at play. And it was like a double cross going on. So me just telling you that there is a double identity in this, and it's a double identity in this, is giving that away. So I'm going to tell you that it has this in it, and then I'm going to tell you the setup of the book, and I'm not going to tell you how those things interchange. So hopefully it'll still leave a lot of mystery about the book to you. But, you know, that's the nature of it sometimes when you do oddly specific recs, is that to give the oddly specific rec, I'm also kind of spoiling it for you, but it also might make you read it. So anyway, all of that to say, this book that I just finished was called Hunt for You by Amy Lynn. Now, what is fascinating is that this has a super dark setup. Super dark. And again, I don't want to spoil the whole thing. I haven't even done this in a weekly wrap-up yet, which is where I would normally do, like, you know, when I do my weekly wrap-up of this, I'll have spoiler tags available and all of that. So I want to be really careful talking about this here, because this is just a rec video. It's not one where I'm going to give my full thoughts on the book or anything. But like, the setup of the book makes it sound so dark. And it honestly isn't as dark as the setup makes it sound. But it's like impossible to explain that. Just remember the tidbit that I've said, that this is a double identity. And I feel like by saying that it's a double identity, that kind of maybe can give you an inkling about how it might not be as dark as it sounds. But in Hunt for You, we have our heroine here, who the setup is that she's looking for someone on the dark web who will hunt her and kill her. Okay. She has done primal play before. She's done kink play, lots of dark things. And she finds that she's not getting enough of a thrill out of it when there's no actual threat of unaliving at the end of it. So she's in these forums online looking for people who are actually willing to end her. And so she goes by the persona of Dead Girl Walking, and she has started connecting with this man on there called Sleeping Beast. And this is just a little bit of their back and forth here. It says, this is Sleeping Beast. You think me murdering you is going to make you feel alive? Dead girl walking. No, I think knowing that my day is coming soon will make life a lot more interesting until it does. And then when it finally does, I won't have to think about it anymore at all. Sleeping Beast. That's dark. Dead girl walking. You're homicide for hire and you're calling me dark? Touché. So, anyway, that is the setup of this. And it's a double identity story. And that's all I want to tell you about it. The author, I think herself, does a pretty good job in the intro of kind of setting it up as well. I had no idea what I was fully getting into, but it was fascinating. And again, it was not as dark as it appears when you hear that this woman is looking for someone to end her life. Because again, there's so much more going on, and this is a double identity, and it's more of a suspense / mystery thing. And I've already said enough. Again, if you'd like to know more about this book, tune into my weekly wrap up, because I am going to use spoiler tags and tell you even more about what's going on in this, because there's actually going to be a part 2 to this book, and I'm going to be reading it in July, in this month, and I'm very excited to do so, because wow, this book was a ride. So anyway, this one though absolutely fits the category on the front end, where a woman is falling in love with two sides of the same person. So that one absolutely fits that. Another one that fits that, definitely on a completely lighter note, is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. Okay, this was one I read quite a few years ago at this time. It was actually one of my very first, I had to go look back at my notes here, one of my very first Patreon reads, one of my very first exclusive Patreon reads, which I just love looking back on now. So fun. I literally read it in June of 2022, which means it was my third exclusive review that I did, which is really fun. But from what I remember about this one, I had to pull up the blurb because it's been a little hot minute here. This is a part of the Dreamland Billionaire series. So Dreamland is like Disneyland. And we have Rowan, who works for this company. His family works it. And then he hires Zara because she has submitted a proposal for a ride at Dreamland. And now she's working with Rowan Kane. And it's a very, very difficult job that they have together. And the way this one ends up being a hidden identity is that I believe she ends up, let me find the note here, sorry. I believe she ends up on a dating app with him because I think one of his other brothers, who's also a billionaire, has started a dating app. And so he ends up connected with her on the dating app. And so while they're working together in real life and he's a total asshole to her, he's learning about how to woo her and through what she likes while talking with her on the dating app. So there's where that dual stuff comes through right there. So yes. Yes. And we also have, she is a plus size heroine. She has a sister who has Down syndrome. There's also discussions of mental health and alcoholism in this one. And there's a lot to like about this one. And of course it has the slow burn that Lauren Asher is really known for, which is just very nice in a lot of ways, for sure. And then one that I just love getting the chance to recommend. I haven't talked about one of her books in a long time, so this made me happy. This was actually a book that I got to beta read for the author when it came out, and I can't believe it's been so long already. This came out in at the end of 2023, which is just crazy to me. But there is Good Game by Madison Fox. And yes, this one is a double identity where the heroine in this one, Stevie, she falls for a masked man that she meets. And she does display a little bit of risky behavior where she is working at an event. I believe she's catering at this event, and there are these gamer streamers in this series. This is a gamer series, and the guys, English, Blade, and I can't remember the other guy's name, they always wear their masks whenever they go to events so that no one knows who they really are. And she ends up kind of fooling around with him at this event. So she's fooling around with him when he's in his mask. Then she ends up meeting him in her real life as Alexander Knight, this tattooed bad boy. And she meets him in a scenario where it's not totally appropriate that she be falling for him. And so, yeah, she gets the thrill with the masked man. And then there's also this charmer who's a bit forbidden in real life as well in Alexander Knight. And so she's kind of torn between the two of them, but they're really the same guy. So Good Game is definitely one that I think comes up quite a bit these days when people are looking for a double identity, because it's a pretty clear-cut one. And it's actually one that I got to give some feedback on myself about how the double identity should get revealed and how it should play out, which was fun for me to get to do. So a bit biased about that one, but it was fun to get to do. And then the last one that I have that I think is a good, like, double identity falling for the same person is The Casanova by T.L. Swan. And this one as well is a little bit like the fine print in the aspect of it's a billionaire. And this one is Kate, who works for Elliot Miles. And she has a new pen pal who really, it's through a dating app. She starts talking with a guy named Edgar. And as she starts talking with Edgar and sharing a lot about what a jerk her boss is and things like that, Elliot starts to be nicer to her and starts actually picking up a few tips on how to be a better dude to her through that, which I think is very interesting how that plays out and everything. So yeah, The Casanova is also one that has kind of that double identity thing. And I believe in this one too, it has, sorry, I'm trying to find it here. Yeah, Elliot just finds Kate like so charming, and I really love their relationship with one another. And though I have shared that I really struggle with T.L. Swan in a lot of her releases that came after the takeover, The Casanova is probably my second favorite in the series. If I, were to pick another that I like even slightly as much as the takeover, I think The Casanova does a pretty good job. I still think that she struggles in writing heroes who respond rationally to not getting what they want at times. But I think Elliot does a semi-decent job anyway, let's say. So, yeah. So there's that one. Okay. So those are the four that I think fit into woman falling for the same guy in two different scenarios, right? The rest of these are more just straight up secret identity of one of the people anyway. Okay? I wish that I had more of those ones. And again, I know more of them exist. So if you have them, please share them down below. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of quickly share some other secret identity ones that I like. And on that note, I have made 2 other secret identity rec videos before, and I'll have those linked up here. It's been quite a while since I made one. So that's why I also was like, well, I'll just add some more recs in here as well, because I haven't made a regular secret identity identity video in a while either. Okay, so one that shows up a lot, and I am kind of repeating this one, is of course Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. This is when I first became aware of Olivia Dade. I can't remember if this is her debut or not either, but this one was really fun, and I feel like it's really one that I still get kind of the giggles over because of how much I love fanfic these days. I just think it's a really fun one to bring up, because in this one we have Marcus Castor Rupp, who is this actor on a show which is kind of like a Game of Thrones type show. And he has this secret life where he actually writes fan fiction as like kind of fix-it fan fiction for the show that he's actually on and that he thinks isn't doing a great job. And there's this woman named April Whittier who is a hardcore fan of a different character on the show. And she also writes fanfic. And so these two have been kind of like supporters of each other's fanfics online. And then there happens to be a time where she creates a cosplay of Lavinia. And because she's a plus size person, people just really take the piss out of her for daring to do a plus size look of this woman. Now, I feel like that really dates this book as being from 6 years ago at this point is when it came out. However, I mean, there would still be people who would be trolls and who would be mean, but really when this one came out, it was a much bigger deal at the time as well. And so because of that, Marcus actually ends up commenting on her outfit saying that she looks beautiful, and he ends up asking her out on a date despite what everyone on the internet is saying. And so this date is kind of sort of a PR stunt is what people think, but also Marcus is a big fan of her and her fanfic work, but he can't just come out and say, you know, that he writes fanfic. It could get him in a lot of trouble. He's not allowed to do that for the show he's on. So there's all this stuff going on about it. So he's had to keep this stuff a secret. And when he discovers that she is the unapologetic Lavinia stan and she's his closest friend in the fandom, now he has to like keep this a secret from her that he knows she's his friend as well. So it's a secret identity that this star on the show is writing fanfic, which I think it's funny because there are a lot of people in the fanfic community that like hope that some of their favorite actors are writing fanfic and things like that, which is silly to think they'd have time to do that. But then again, we know there are some actors who have written fanfic at times before. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty cute one back in the day. I don't know if it would hold up or how I'd feel about it now, but I remember really enjoying it at the time when I read it. Okay, then to get through this, there is The Pucking Wrong Number by C.R. Jane. This was another one that I actually read for my Patreon, actually just this last December. And this one was quite crazy. I know this one is quite divisive for people. I think it's a bit like unbelievable how the heroine ends up getting, or how the hero ends up getting the heroine's phone number. But this is one, it's at a college. And we have Lincoln Daniels, who he ends up accidentally sending a text to the wrong number. And it ends up being the heroine's phone number. And she sends a picture to prove he sent it to the wrong person. And once he sees a picture of her, he is able to identify who she is, because she, even though he sent it to the wrong number, it still ends up being someone at his college and near him, and so he's able to figure out who she is. He becomes obsessed with her, and so he starts kind of stalking her. So yeah, this one is a hidden identity, but it doesn't stay hidden forever. But it definitely was a ride, and I really didn't take it too terribly seriously, and I think that's why I enjoyed it a bit more than I could have, or maybe even should have, because yeah, I didn't take it too terribly seriously. But a lot of people really hate on this one, and I just didn't think it was that bad. There was some fun stuff about it. Okay, then there was Liars Like Us by J.T. Geisinger. This was the first book in her Morally Gray series. So, you know, all of her heroes are morally gray, so don't expect them to be Prince Charmings, that's for sure. But in this one, we have our heroine who, I'm pretty sure we don't get the hero's POV in it at all, but I think it's Callum is his name. And I can't remember the heroine's name because it isn't said right away. It's been a hot minute since I've read this. But in this one, I believe our heroine, she owns a bookstore. And her bookstore ends up being in some financial trouble. And so there's this billionaire who ends up offering to marry her and take away all her financial troubles. And she maybe doesn't look into who he is or what his business connections are too heartily before she agrees to marry him. And, you know, that may or may not be her own oopsie daisy for doing that. But it's certainly going to lead to a wild ride, let's just say. So, yeah, I remember that this book wasn't my absolute favorite of JT's. I'll just say that. Because coming off of the Queens and Monsters series, I just had super high expectations. But it still is, if you go into any books from JT expecting a wild ride and just let it take you there, I think you can have a really great time. And that is what I had with this book. I had a really great time. So, you know, it could have been worse, is what I always say. And yeah, when you discover who Callum is and his family and all those things, it's definitely quite a reveal for sure. All right, then there is Top Secret by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy. This is one you'll see a lot of times in Hidden Identity videos, but I also really like it. And since Elle Kennedy is getting a lot of the attention right now, I love bringing up her co-writes with Serena Bowen and some of her older books because she's written so much more than just the off-campus series that deserve attention. And this one actually is a really interesting one because you have these two college students who, at first, it starts off with this guy who, it says he's a jock, secretly a science geek, hot as fuck, who's 21. And he has the name Lobster Shorts. And he's looking for a bisexual guy who's willing to have a threesome for his girlfriend's birthday. And he goes on to a hookup app to find someone. Now, he says, of course, have you ever done this sort of thing with another guy before? And he says, all the time, I play for both teams. Do you? Now, the one character is, you know, kind of pretending that he's only in this to find someone for his girlfriend. But really, he might want it a little more than he's willing to admit. And he says, hey, nothing wrong with pushing your boundaries. And he says, tell that to my control freak father. Anyway, what if this threesome is awkward? And he says, then it's awkward. It's not like we'll ever have to see each other again, right? Just promise you won't fall in love with me. And he says, now, wouldn't that be life-changing? And I think, if I'm remembering correctly too, it's been a while. I need to reread this one. This one's such a good one. Is I think they're actually, Keaton and Luke are actually like kind of sort of like enemies with each other too. And so when they find out who they are on this app, it definitely complicates things a little bit, but they just can't help but, you know, even when the girlfriend then ends up not still being part of the equation at all, they can't help but want there to be more between the two of them as well. So really, really liked this one, and it's a great one for Hidden Identity for sure. Oh, my hair just got so frizzy today. And then the final one I wanted to share, this one was a throwback to a series that never got finished. Oh, it just was an abandoned series, which was so sad. But Katie Robert just kind of got done with doing Mafia, and so she just abandoned it all. But there was The Bastard's Betrayal by Katie Robert, and this was supposed to, well, I mean, it was, but it was the first in what was going to be a spin-off from her O'Malley series. And this one was Rose Romanoff, who is a mafia princess. And she thought that she'd fallen for this guy who was a civilian who had nothing to do with the mafia. And she was just loving that it was someone who wasn't complicated and was totally chill, only to find out that it was actually Dante Verducci who was sent undercover to evaluate her family. And now he has a connection with their heir. And when he discovers that they've both been lying to each other during the months that they've been dating, and now they're going to be forced into an engagement, or she finds out who he really is, dumps him, and is entered into an engagement with a rival family, Dante is like, fuck no, I'm going to kidnap you and marry you myself. So this is another one where I guess it's kind of like a double hidden identity, but also he knows who she really is. She just didn't know who he was. And then when she finds out, she's like, fuck no, I'm not playing these games. And he's like, oh yes, yes we are. So anyway, lots of stuff is afoot in this one. But yeah, this is one that this series was supposed to be called Scandalous Scions, and she put this one out way back in 2021, and then her Olympus series really took off, and this one didn't get as much attention as some of her others, and so it just got abandoned. But I really liked it. I loved this one so much, maybe because I really loved her Mafia series so much. And then she went the direction of the Gods of Olympus and doing the Kickstarter stuff, and we never got back around to the Mafia, which was sad, but I still really like that one. So anyway, so there you go. Those are some hinted identity wrecks. I hope you enjoy some of them. And again, I wish I'd had more of those really oddly specific for that. But anyway, I hope you'll be happy with some of these anyway. So thank you so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next time.